us.
Thank you.
Well, moving on to, cuts elsewhere. Companies are looking at cutting costs any way they can in this recession, and a recent tactic has been to freeze employee pensions. 16 companies have announced plans to freeze their pensions already this year versus 18 in all of 2008. So what is the government trying to do to protect those pensions? Let's bring in Congressman Earl Pomeroy from North Dakota. Congressman, great of you to be here. What is your solution? What relief are you drafting?
Basically, part of the reason for the pension plan freezing is the funding requirements that Congress passed into law shortly before the economy crashed. It takes more of a mark-to-market approach that, in my opinion, is advisable for pension plan funding. So we're developing and exposing around town a draft that would allow some pension funding relief. It would allow them to, now that their portfolios have been severely reduced in value, just like someone's 401k in light of the market, it will allow them some time to fund up, more time than is allowed at present law. I think that's going to help these pensions, keep pensions in place. It's also going to help these businesses continue to grow at a time of challenging economic times.
Congressman, are there going to be any, requirements of the companies that if you give them funding relief, will you also require them to not freeze the pensions and use the savings, I suppose, to help the people in the pensions?
Well, we certainly want a dimension of maintenance of effort. We want to provide the help, but we want them to try and keep the pension in place if they can. We also think that one of the things we're looking at is if they are at such a low level of funding that employees are not allowed to take a lump sum distribution, we think that that same restriction probably ought to apply to those executives that are in the non-qualified deferred compensation part of a company's benefits.
What central question, though, is if you give companies funding relief for their pensions, are you just delaying the inevitable and essentially bailing them out? Like a government, let me finish. That a government bailout could happen down the road if the pensions are underfunded.
It's such a good question. It really gets to the heart of the matter. I used to be an insurance commissioner overseeing the solvency of insurance companies. And a concept that we had there was, they've got to have the assets that will match the liabilities the firm owes. Now, a pension plan owes liabilities not just tomorrow, but over many years. And unlike banks, there can't be a run on a pension plan. If a firm owes you a pension obligation through your retirement years, you can't say, I want it all tomorrow. So pension plans do not have that level of exposure. Therefore, you don't have to have cash on hand or the equivalent of cash in this depressed market where the stock valuations held by the portfolio are severely reduced. You can allow them some time to get well again, and hopefully the market will come back and also help in that effort. Therefore, we can give them some breathing room without jeopardizing plan solvency. I think you raise an important point. This is not about some giveaway of funding requirements. It's just about making them more realistic to the stream of liabilities owed over many years.
Well, you brought up insurance, Congressman, and on that note, I must ask you about the estimated $22 billion of TARP money that will go to the insurance companies because, according to many, these insurers have been woefully undercapitalized for a very long time. And I want to get your reaction to, again, the government having to come in and help them out.
Well, insurance companies are regulated fairly exactingly, and if you would compare sectors, you see that the insurance sector is held up much better than the banking sector, in my opinion, reflecting its more closely regulated status. Now, a number of insurance companies do believe that, they ought to have some liquidity relief provided by TARP funds, just like the banking sector, and that has been a decision before this administration.
Where do you draw the line, Congressman? It was the banks, the insurers. Who's next? The automakers?
You noticed I booted that one over to the administration, Dagan. I think there are arguments you could make for or against that proposition.
Congressman, thank you. Representative Earl Pomeroy on looking at changing the funding requirements of pensions to keep them from freezing them. Congressman, be well.
Thank you.